Tonight, battleship down. The US torpedoes an Iranian warship as Iran launches more strikes at Gulf states. Welcome to ABC News Queensland. I'm Jessica Van Vonderen. An out-of-control truck slams into 10 cars on the Sunshine Coast. Hate speech laws passed in state parliament in the wake of the Bondi terror attack. A famous ad credited for shifting behaviours, reducing the risk of melanoma in kids.
And heavy falls hitting the far north coast from a tropical low that's unlikely of turning into a cyclone.
Good evening. Australian military assets have been deployed to the Middle East as part of contingency plans to help bring Australians home. War in the region is widening, with 10 countries now under attack from the Iranian regime. Iran continues to carry out strikes on multiple neighbours, insisting it's aiming at US military targets. NATO defences shot down a ballistic missile believed to be launched at Turkish territory. Israel and the US have been pounding Tehran and parts of Lebanon, including Beirut, while an American submarine has sunk an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean near Sri Lanka. We'll have more on Lebanon and Australian repatriation soon. Bridget Rollison begins our coverage from Jerusalem.
An Iranian warship in the firing line. A torpedo from an American submarine sinking the vessel off the coast of Sri Lanka, killing at least 87 Iranian sailors.
This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
The conflict spreading to the Indian Ocean and into NATO territory after the alliance's air defences destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile headed for Turkey.
We are giving warnings in the clearest way possible for similar incidents not to occur again.
While in neighbouring Syria, an unexploded missile fell near the city of Qamishli.
It terrified children, women and people in the village.
6 days into the conflict, the US claims Iran is firing fewer missiles and that American and Israeli forces will soon have full control of the country's airspace.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15.
There could soon be another front in this already complex war, with reports American-backed Kurdish fighters in Iraq could launch a ground invasion in Iran. The White House has confirmed Donald Trump has spoken to Kurdish leaders, but has denied suggestions the president has authorised such a plan. An internet blackout imposed by the regime makes it difficult for Iranians to communicate with the outside world, but a professor in Tehran who supports the regime spoke to the ABC to criticise the US operation. Americans say that this campaign is ahead of schedule and it's taken out many senior figures. Is it time up for the Islamic regime?
No, these are pipe dreams. Trump has unified Iranians more than any Iranian politician could ever do.
Pointing specifically to the bombing of a girls' school, estimated to have killed more than 160 children.
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that.
The death toll across the Middle East and beyond continuing to rise as the conflict expands. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The federal government is refusing to say whether any Australian Defence Force personnel were on the US submarine which sank an Iranian warship overnight. Dozens of Australians are embedded on US attack-class subs as part of their training to operate the future AUKUS submarine fleet. The Foreign Minister has confirmed Australia did not participate in the US and Israeli airstrikes on Iran, but she was tight-lipped on other details.
Were any Australian personnel on this US submarine when it sank the Iranian frigate and left the survivors to drown?
For operational and security reasons, we do not disclose specific information regarding Australian personnel.
Israel has told residents to leave a large swathe of southern Lebanon as it expands its assault on the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Tens of thousands of Lebanese people have already been displaced in the past few days.
The Beirut bombardment. Israeli fighter jets launching strikes across the Lebanese capital against claimed Hezbollah targets, tearing city blocks apart, while focusing on the southern suburbs of Dahia, known as the militant group's strongholds.
We will not surrender. We will defend ourselves with our capabilities and our faith, no matter the sacrifices.
Israel struck further afield too, including at this hotel in a predominantly Christian neighbourhood. As staff began the mammoth clean-up task, questions were asked about why this site was targeted.
My family lives here. I cannot knowingly accommodate someone who is being targeted. We can screen people, but we cannot know everything.
There might be some of these places that are connected or affiliated to Hezbollah.
Tens of thousands have been displaced in recent days since Hezbollah launched rockets at Israel and Israel hit back hard. That number will now rise off the back of a startling escalation from the military.
We've just arrived here in northern Israel, very close to the Lebanon border, and it's at this point that the IDF has announced an evacuation of the entirety of southern Lebanon, telling people to move north. You can hear a series of explosions just over the border as Israel intensifies its strikes in that region.
The IDF telling hundreds of thousands of people in this area, long regarded Hezbollah heartland, to leave immediately. Over the border in Israel, locals are bracing for the worst.
I'm sure that also the Lebanese don't want Hezbollah. They don't want them. We hear shooting.
So that's the sound of gunfire that we can hear from over the border?
In my opinion, this is shooting. I think the Israeli army is going inside now.
And with a front row seat to the new front, it won't be the last echoes of battle to be heard. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Metula.
More Australians are due to arrive back home tonight after a deal was struck between Gulf states and Iran to open safe airspace over the Middle East. Australian consular crisis teams have been deployed and military planes are on standby in the region to support further repatriations after the first commercial flight landed into Sydney last night.
Tears, cheers and relief after days of chaos and fear. Australians finally home after a back-channel deal between Gulf countries and Iran, allowing the limited opening of one safe flight corridor.
Yeah, we got her! Yeah, she's back!
Emirates flight EK414 from Dubai touching down in Sydney last night, carrying 200 passengers. Among the arrivals were more than a dozen students and teachers from Sydney's Barker College. They were on their way to Turkey for a robotics competition when the conflict forced a stopover in Dubai.
There's some very excited parents here, some very relieved staff.
We were told not to go on our phones, try to conserve battery, but we were taken to a bunker.
Sam Brown, her husband and their 4-year-old daughter had only just started a new life in Dubai.
I never thought I'd be in a situation where I heard explosions over my living room, front door rattling.
World champion triathlete Emma Carney was caught up in chaos in Bahrain. After a tense dash to the UAE and multiple flights, she finally landed in Melbourne last night.
Oh, it's wonderful to be home.
As the crisis deepens, the Australian government's confirmed it's sent 2 military transport planes to the region. A KC-30 and a C-17A was sent over earlier this week.
The government is deploying 6 crisis response teams to the region, and we've already deployed military assets as part of our contingency planning.
A second plane load of passengers is due to touch down in Sydney tonight, with more expected in coming days, although it's unclear how long the safe flight corridor will remain open. Passengers are urged to stay across updates from airlines and Smart Traveller. Relief for some as the long road home continues for those left behind. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
To other news now, and a runaway truck carrying concrete blocks has hurtled into 10 cars on the Sunshine Coast. The driver was making a delivery on a steep road at Alexandra Headland just before 7 o'clock this morning when it appears the brakes failed. As the truck careered down the hill, the driver managed to steer onto a service street before coming to a crashing halt. Amazingly, no one was hurt. Former federal government minister Mal Brough was among those who had their cars damaged.
And if he'd continued another straight ahead and not gone off the side of this little cliff, as it's called, he would have propelled himself into a house at the other end with enormous energy, and God knows what would have been.
The Weather Bureau is warning heavy rain, strong winds and flooding are still expected in far north Queensland, despite a cyclone watch being downgraded. Roseanne Maloney is in Port Douglas for us tonight. Roseanne, what's the latest?
Well, Jess, the tropical low is lingering just off the coast here, but as you can see, it's already raining here in Port Douglas. Now, the chance of that tropical low strengthening into a cyclone has decreased, but the Weather Bureau says it's still expected to bring significant rain and wind from around the Daintree down to around Innisfail. The system is forecast to cross the coast late tomorrow morning near Innisfail. Flood warnings are already in place for the Daintree and Mossman River catchments. Some areas north of the Daintree River have already received around 130 millimetres of rain since this morning, and authorities say winds are also a concern.
Tomorrow the expectation is around stronger winds with gales still up to 90 kilometres an hour. Between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Jess, forecasters say up to around 350 millimetres of rain could fall within 24 hours, which could trigger flash flooding. And anyone heading out on the roads is being urged to drive to the conditions.
Yes, time to be very careful out there. Roseanne Maloney, thank you. To Jacqui McLaren now. Jacqui, can you show us where the system is right now?
I can, Jess, and as we heard, we're not anticipating cyclone development. However, heavy rainfall is the main feature. We've already seen mammoth totals, so let's dive into the satellite. Here's tropical low 29U, right now 205 kilometres northeast of Cairns. The Daintree copping 200 millimetres since 9 a.m. Some areas may see half a metre in 24 hours. Tomorrow, it's likely it will move onshore around Cardwell, but the severe weather warning stretches from Cape Flattery to Innisfail, so do stay with us. I'll have more on this very soon.
Sweeping laws to crack down on anti-Semitism and implement major gun reforms have passed Queensland Parliament. But the state opposition seized on a backtrack from the government, saying it's been a rushed process and voted against the bill.
Contested firebrand phrases. Now banned when inciting violence or offence, with a maximum penalty of 2 years in jail. Originally, the legislation allowed the Attorney-General the extraordinary power to ban any expression. The government backtracked on Monday, amending the bill to specify phrases from the river to the sea and globalise the intifada. Today, tight-lipped on the about face.
We've done a lot of work on it.
Why the change in stance?
And the Premier never explains why he's done a 180 when he's asked by Queenslanders.
I've spoken at length in the Parliament and more than happy to refer to my Parliament speech.
What was that? The wide-ranging laws form the government's response to the Bondi terror attack. The opposition has been scathing of the time allowed for parliamentary submissions and debate.
Well, I think it's been completely shambolic from the government. They have just tried to gag parliamentarians from talking about a bill that will criminalise speech. You know, for the Liberal Party, this certainly is an interesting take on freedom.
Ultimately voting against it.
30 noes. We believe in freedom of speech.
Absolute rubbish. You know, they are going to use every excuse under the sun.
The legislation also includes major gun reforms. It requires firearm owners to be Australian citizens and strengthens penalties for stealing and trafficking guns. There are also new offences for drive-by shootings, particularly at places of worship, and for people who print 3D guns. Alex Brewster, ABC News.
A possible overhaul to laws for e-bikes and scooters could see the Queensland government pump the brakes for many riders. Some argue the devices should remain accessible, while others say the risk they pose far outweighs the perks.
E-bikes and e-scooters are all over Queensland streets.
I didn't feel too safe going out last night. There was a lot of people, packed, push bikes, these e-scooters, no helmets. Oh, what could go wrong?
It's a question that's been the focus of a parliamentary inquiry. The committee is recommending children under 16 be banned.
I think that's probably a good idea. I honestly don't entirely agree with that.
It's a change these South Australians would like to see enforced in their home state.
I think that's a great idea. I think definitely reduce the speed, keep the speed down to make it safer.
Doctors say the report makes for safer footpaths.
We have seen significant injuries over the past year. That includes, unfortunately, 12 deaths in Queensland and over 6,000 presentations to our emergency departments.
Curbing risk and speeds, reducing limits on footpaths to 10 kilometres per hour.
We're in Queensland, what's the hurry?
Police would also have more power to seize unlawful devices.
We want to see the government act upon it quickly and crack down and impound, first go.
Some feel mandating riders to hold a driver's licence is a bridge too far.
If you were to take away all those public scooter companies, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Domino's, you're going to anger a large constituency.
Businesses that hire out e-bikes and scooters say they allow people without a licence to get to work and school. The government says it's prepared to make difficult decisions as it considers all 28 recommendations. Until then,
just be careful, don't be an idiot with them.
Lucy Loram, ABC News.
An inquest into the murder of Gold Coast mother Kelly Wilkinson has heard new evidence of her last interaction with police. The coroner today heard an allegation Ms Wilkinson was told to cool off and sent home by staff at Southport Police Station 4 days before she was murdered by her estranged husband Brian Johnston in April 2021. The inquest has previously heard her last contact with police was 5 days earlier than that. The family's legal team successfully argued the inquest should be adjourned to examine the potential new evidence.
We would like to thank the coroner for having a closer look at the issues around Kelly's death, and we look forward to seeing the recommendations for future improvements.
To Canberra, where Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has used a major speech in Parliament to issue a call for middle powers to band together in the face of coercion from superpowers. The Middle East war has loomed over the visit, with Mr Carney and Anthony Albanese calling for de-escalation.
Far-flung friends gathering against a backdrop of war. Mark Carney greeted like family at Australia's Parliament.
Though we could not be further physically apart, Canada and Australia are strategic cousins.
The distance between our two nations has never mattered less, and the closeness of our values has never mattered more.
But the world outside is more dangerous and uncertain, both leaders grappling with the spreading disorder and violence in the Middle East. But neither are calling for a ceasefire, at least for now.
I want to see the possibility of Iran getting a nuclear weapon removed once and for all.
Before there can be a ceasefire, there needs to be a de-escalation of hostilities. Right now we have a spreading of hostilities.
Both countries know they risk becoming mere bystanders as great powers become more willing to wield economic power and deploy military force. Mr Carney using his speech to Parliament to revive his call for middle powers like Canada and Australia to form new coalitions.
The question today for middle powers like us is whether we establish the conventions and help write the new rules that will determine our security and prosperity, or let the hegemons dictate outcomes.
For all the talk of a coalition of middle powers, the brute reality is that Canada and Australia will remain dependent in important ways on both the US and China for years to come. The question is, what red lines can they draw and how can they try to enforce them? For now, the steps are modest, the two countries penning new agreements on critical minerals, vaccines, emergency management and agreeing to set up a defence ministers' meeting.
Australia and Canada have never waited for others to write our futures.
When the rules no longer protect you, you have to protect yourself. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Canberra.
Fertility giant Monash IVF has reached secret financial settlements with families involved in two major embryo mix-ups. The company became aware in February last year that a Brisbane woman had given birth to a baby she had no genetic ties to after receiving the wrong embryo. In June, Monash IVF apologised after a second woman in Melbourne was given the wrong embryo, receiving her own instead of her partner's. Now the fertility provider has reached confidential settlement agreements with the families involved. A spokesperson said the company deeply regrets the incidents and has worked closely with the regulator to ensure it's meeting required standards. Now to some encouraging news about skin cancer prevention. A large Australian study has found the average number of moles on children's bodies halved over a 25-year period, greatly reducing the risk of melanoma, crediting a familiar ad.
Slip on a shirt, slap on sunscreen and slap on a hat.
It's a message ingrained in the psyche of generations of Australians. Now a long-running Queensland study of almost 4,000 12-year-old twins and their siblings has found the campaign worked.
I think it's worth shouting from the rooftops.
Researchers tracked the number of acquired moles on participants' skin. In 1992, there was an average of 100. By 2016, the count had fallen to 50.
This drop is probably due to much better sun protective behaviour when the kids are young, under the age of 12.
The published study says the reduced mole count should lead to a 4-fold drop in lifetime melanoma risk for those born after 2000, compared with 1980s babies.
It's a really unique study. It's never been done anywhere else in the world.
Sun-drenched Aussies changed their ways, ensuring children wear hats, play in the shade and use sunscreen. But the challenge continues.
It's important that we build on this and continue to protect our skin as we get beyond that childhood period.
The struggle is making sure teenagers and adults stay sun safe and that the updated public health campaign cuts through to new generations.
6 shades, slide on sunnies, simple as that.
Kate Clark was in the landmark study with her twin brothers.
I think keep the campaign up.
Emma Pollard, ABC News, Brisbane.
To Finance Now, here's David Chow.
Well, markets across the world tanked earlier this week after the US and Israel started a new war in the Middle East. But many of these markets got over their doom and gloom and rebounded, like South Korea's Kospi, up more than 10% in one day. What's behind this sudden burst of optimism is a report from the New York Times, citing unnamed officials. And that report says Iran's spy agency reached out indirectly to America's CIA to discuss terms for ending the war, something which Iranian officials publicly deny. So the hope this war might not drag on for too long is probably why oil prices haven't spiked all that much in the grand scheme of things. Certainly nowhere near as much as they did when Russia invaded Ukraine. Now that was a spike. Or perhaps markets are underestimating how serious things could get, especially if we fast forward to a few weeks from now and oil tankers still are unable or unwilling to go through the Strait of Hormuz for fear of being attacked by Iranian forces. In commodities, oil went up another 3%, which takes prices to their highest level in a year and a half. That's despite Donald Trump's pledge to protect and insure oil tankers passing through the Persian Gulf. And there was a moderate rise in the price of gold. The Australian share market, meanwhile, clawed back about 0.5%, though it's still down about 3% since the week began. Tech, defence and energy stocks did well, but Star Entertainment was today's big loser. That's after the federal court found its former CEO, Matt Beckier, and former in-house lawyer, Paula Martin, breached their duties as executives by not doing enough to prevent money laundering at Star's casinos. They'll be back in court in a few days to learn how much they've been fined. And finally, the Aussie dollar is a little bit weaker at 70.5 US cents. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30, the rape trial that shocked the world. Giselle Pellico shares her story.
What was it really like seeing those 50 men in that courtroom?
J'étais partie en me disant que je ne voulais rien laisser paraître. C'est-à-dire que je voulais rester digne, leur montrer qu'ils ne m'atteignaient pas, ils pouvaient me défier, me regarder. Alors je ne dis pas que c'était facile, il y avait des moments où j'ai eu envie d'hurler, mais je ne voulais pas leur laisser ce plaisir.
To sport, the Matildas continue their Women's Asian Cup campaign against Iran on the Gold Coast tonight. ABC Sports' Mackenzie Colohan is there and joins us now. Mac, the Matildas game is underway and there's plenty of action outside the stadium too.
There is, Jess. It's all happening here. The rain is coming down. We're midway through the first half and the Matildas are up 1-0 already. They are expected to win tonight, Australia, and win big, and they're going to need to score plenty of goals to give themselves the best chance of qualifying on top of the group. Standing in their way, though, is South Korea. We play South Korea in a blockbuster in Sydney on Sunday, but the Koreans already have 3-0 wins over Iran and the Philippines, who we only scraped past 1-0 against the other night. It's a full house here, the first sold-out game in the history of the Women's Asian Cup. There are plenty of Iranian supporters. Many of them actually had a demonstration against the Islamic regime before the game started. Now, understandably, there's been plenty of interest on the Iranian women's team this week, given the war that's going on in the Middle East. In what was an act of defiance before their opening game, those players refused to sing the national anthem. They did sing the national anthem tonight, which drew some jeers from the Iranian supporters in the crowd. So it's a bit of a clash of sport and politics tonight. Either way, Jess, it should be a great game. I'm going to get back in there now and watch. Go the Tillies.
Mac, thank you. Enjoy it. The Broncos will keep the Panthers guessing over their starting side, with Michael Maguire remaining coy over his hooker position. Corey Pakes has been named to start at 9 tomorrow night, but the coach hasn't ruled out Ben Hunt getting first chance at dummy half. Meanwhile, Maguire has opened up on his meeting with potential signing Mitch Barnett. The Warriors co-captain is being pursued by Brisbane as an option to replace Payne Haas in 2027.
I talk to a lot of the players that I've coached over time, and he's one of them too. He's got great character and obviously my style of player, and so in time, I don't know. I sort of tend to leave that part to the front office.
Weather now, and Jacqui's back with us. Jacqui, is that a double rainbow I see?
It is, Jess. Plenty of colour in the sky today. Diane too in North Queensland treated to the hues of pink and purple. Thanks everyone. As for today's temperatures, Thargomindah, the hot spot of the day, 37 the top. Meanwhile, Brisbane hit its peak with a top of 30 degrees. Onto the satellite, and we can see where the action is right across the north of the country. So tomorrow, Broome and Darwin in for an unsettled Friday, with sunshine on the way for our neighbours across the south. Back home, and let's unpack the story. We've got the monsoon trough, within it a conga line of tropical lows, 29U our focus at the moment. As for what's next, this system will move over land, tracking toward the northern interior, where it will pick up moisture and then drag the trough down toward the east. So we've got deep tropical moisture, northeasterly winds piling in, and that is a recipe for heavy rain. First for the northeast tomorrow, then the northern interior Saturday, and the southeast by about Sunday. For now though, the northeast is the focus, so a reminder, we have a warning in place. 350 millimetres within 24 hours is possible. Again, it could be more though. So that is why we have widespread flood watches in place from St Lawrence, Mackay and also further north, on top of the warnings we already have as well. So with all of that in mind, let's take a look at forecasts now, and it is all eyes on the north as the tropical low 29U reaches the coastline. Heavy falls from Cairns to Townsville, steady showers further south. Across the interior, it's heating up to the west. Birdsville, you're heading for a top of 38 degrees. In the southeast, warm, humid, muggy, some showers too, but easing by the evening. Sunshine colours, you're heading for a top of 29 degrees. Gympie 29 for you as well. Hervey Bay a little warmer at 30. A similar story for the capital, heading for a top of 29 degrees on the way. Logan a top of 30. Checking the Bay, Boaties east to south easterly winds 15 to 20 knots. Seas around 1 metre. Sunrise at 5:43 and the sun will set at 6:15. 27 degrees in the water at the moment. And looking ahead, it's a little uncertain across the weekend depending on the low. Could see some decent falls. For now though, Jess, encouraging those in the north to keep an eye on warnings overnight.
Yes, absolutely. Jacqui, thank you so much for that. That is ABC News to the moment. Thank you for your company tonight. There's more news on our website, but for now, stay with us here on ABC TV for 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson. Good night.
Good night.